All right, we are now recording, and I want to start off with the notice that we are going to be in a sandbox environment today of all data that is on fake students. So I want to let you know that you will be seeing no personally identifiable information on any student inside of this. This Mickey Mouse is not a real student, and anybody whose name seems like it's a real student or likeness to anyone is purely coincidental. So completely safe to share this information because we do know that you want to be very safe and secure and see and who sees health information when it comes to students, because that is a very protected subset of data. So what we're going to talk about today are enterprise reports that have been created specifically for the nurses in the state, because one of the things that we had heard is the need of being able to get a little bit of more detailed information out of PowerSchool based on what you've put in the different health module pieces. We do know that there are the native system reports. If I go to system reports inside of PowerSchool, there's all of these nurses reports. So hopefully you all have access to these reports. If you do not, there is a video on that link that I shared just a little while ago that will show you how to get these reports turned on for you if you currently do not have these reports. Okay. And Kendall, if you won't mind, will you stick that website in just every now and then so anybody new who joins has it for me? Thank you. I appreciate it. But what I want to talk about is a subset of reports called enterprise reports. These are what I'm going to call your smorgasbord of spreadsheet reports. These are ones that people have really fallen in love with across the districts because you can get pretty much any kind of information out of PowerSchool with these. Now, my screen is probably going to look very different from your screen. So in accessing enterprise reports, just to show you that breadcrumb trail again, you're going to come down to reports here, system reports, and you should have a tab that says enterprise reporting. When you click on this tab, notice I have lots of reports on here. Also notice there are separate categories for reports on here. So you see I have attendance, discipline, enrollment, grades, health, list is kind of a catch-all for reports, schedule, special education. There's 8 or 9 different categories we can place reports on. And why those categories are real important is because you can lock down security to the categories. So for example, I can allow certain user roles to only have access to health reports. And you want to make sure that that security is locked down because as we know, not everybody should see a student's health record. Not everybody should see students' discipline records and so forth. And so you want to make sure that that's in place. If you get to this page and you get this message of you have no access, it might be that either one, your district has not even set up the security for enterprise reports yet, or you just haven't been granted that security yet, and you'll need to ask for it. Again, on that website that Kendall just shared, it has a video walking through how to set up enterprise reporting in general and how to give that security permission to you. So we're not going to go through that piece today because I really want to focus on these health reports and how to run them. Now, with these health reports, and these are all of them that are there, the first question that I might get is, well, Stacy, if my person has set up the security but they're not there, where do they get these reports from? Because these reports don't come just automatically in PowerSchool. These reports are developed by us here at the Alabama State Department of Education, and we put them in a place where districts can go grab them and install them in here for you to use. So there is a website here, and let me just grab the link and we'll share it as well throughout the chat. This is the link to the overall set of reports that are out there. So when you come to this page right here, down at the bottom, there's a whole tab of enterprise reports. And if they scroll down, your person in charge of PowerSchool, here you'll see all of the different health reports. We periodically update reports on this spreadsheet. We periodically add new reports to this spreadsheet. And you can see when we do, I'll put, so like, for example, right here, we updated this and gave some more information on it. And so you can see right here when it was last updated. This is the link your tech person will use to install it in here. Here you can even click and see a picture of what the report looks like, so you can decide if your district really needs this report or not, and so forth. So here is where you gather the reports to actually get installed into your PowerSchool server. Once they install them and publish them, you will have them here in this list. These reports can be accessed at district office and at school levels. And permissions are based on where you log in them from. So if you log in from a school level and you run the report, you're only going to get results from the students in that school. And conversely, if you run it from the district office, you're going to get results for the entire district. Now, I have to give a preface here. There are 3 reports in this list that currently can only be ran at the district office level, which means it's probably just going to be your lead nurse who's going to have access to them, unless your district gives school nurses access to the district office site as well. So I need you to keep that in mind. Those 3 reports are the read receipt report, the diabetic monitoring report, and the health plan report. And I'll show you these as we go through. But if you need either of those reports, it's going to have to be your person at the district office, like I said, typically your lead nurse, who can extract that information to give you if you need it for some kind of case. I do know, unfortunately, sometimes nurses have to produce quite a bit of information for legal reasons, for DHR reasons, and so forth. And so we wanted you to have these reports where you can actually pull that information to submit. So because some of these are locked, I actually want to show what happens if you try to run them at school level. So I'm going to start us out at a school running these reports and talk about how to use them. We're just going to go down the list. Feel free as I'm going through. I do have it where y'all can't unmute yourself right now because we just don't want the feedback. But if you have any questions as I'm going through, feel free to type them in chat and I'll be happy to answer. And then when I get through with the training, I will allow where everybody can unmute. So if you want to have a conversation about one of them, I will be more than happy to and help you in any way possible. So notice I've just swapped over to the high school. So I'm going to go back to those same breadcrumbs to access these reports. I'm going to go to System Reports, and I'll look for my tab for Enterprise Reporting. So hopefully you have been granted access to the Health section of reports so that you see them. These are all that we have out there. So we're just going to go from top to bottom. So currently office visits can be ran from both levels. I can run this from the school level and I can run it from the district office level. So let's just see what this is. So the first thing that you have to do when you are presented with the office visit screen is up at the top, it's asked you to select a school year. And a lot of things when you run enterprise reports inside of PowerSchool is going to ask you to reference for a specific school year. So I'm actually going to go back to 21-22 because I've got more data in this sandbox from that year than I do for this current year. So notice when I get right here, we start you out with a subset of information. So enterprise reports look like spreadsheets, but it's spreadsheets that are the best of a lot of worlds, because what we can do in enterprise reporting is, for simplicity's sake, start you out with a fixed number of columns. So you see right here, we first start you out with the student's number, their first name, their last name, their school. Now, of course, I'm only running it from the school level, so this should be the only school I see in the list. If the student's enrolled, the date of the visit for this office visit, the time in, the time out, the visit type. So what you have entered into these, and what we heard from a lot of people, is we need something that captures that whole note. And so that's what we did in here. Who the name was, the screener type, whatever it was inside of here. But what's really great about enterprise reports is we can start you with a very narrow view of data and allow you to choose to add additional data in it. So if you're given access to health reports and any other enterprise report inside of PowerSchool, I want you to become very good friends with this action button right here. Because when you click actions, the very first item is select columns. This is like me sending you down a buffet line saying, here's you a plate of food, now go add anything else you want to it. So I'm going to click select columns and I'm presented with this box. And I can, well, it doesn't really make it a little bigger. Let's zoom in so we can help here. And in this box, it tells you all of the possible columns of data that you could have. Now, what we attempted to do, and I think we pulled it off in this, when we created these reports, when you go to an office visit for a student, I want you to think about every field that you have to put data in on. What we did is pulled every one of those fields into this report. We didn't display it right out of the box because nobody wants to be presented with a spreadsheet of 100 columns right out of the gate. It might be that you just need certain ones over in there. Maybe you just need to get the blood pressure information for these kids and you don't need to look at anything else. You get to tailor this report to your needs and your wants at that time. So notice here are all of the other fields that you have to add into when you are creating an office visit inside of PowerSchool. So I can take and swap. Right now, it tells me that these are the items I've put in this report. So it says display and report. Notice you have these left and right arrow buttons. This allows you to move the single arrows, allow you to move, one or multiple things over, or you can just click this and I moved everything over. Or I can move this and move everything back. I can just go through and say, I just want first name, and I'm going to use the control button. So I'm going to click the control button on my keyboard, and I want first name, last name, school, the date, the reason, and notes. Maybe that's all I want. And once you pick, you can cherry pick, or like I said, you can put them all over there. Once you pick what you want to see in your report, you hit apply, and it's going to spin and it redoes the report for you. So you choose what information you want to see. So now I just see these 4 things right here. If I want to come back to columns, I can add and delete as much as I want to. So I'm going to actually throw everything over there just to give you the broad view of everything you have. And so now I see that I get every piece of information that I've entered in when I was performing this office visit on the student. Okay. Every piece of that information you entered can now be pulled out. And if you needed to print this or filter it or look for just one student, you actually have those options as well. So maybe you had a request from DHR and they said, I need you to print me every office visit you had for Mickey Mouse, every one. Well, I could do it a couple of ways. So this is the teaching moment of going through everything you can do in these. You can filter by clicking on these headers. So if I know I'm looking for Mickey Mouse, I can actually click on this and it'll give you a whole list. Now, I'm working with a very limited subset of data. I know when you click this, you might get 500 kids in your list because you see every kid every day, don't you? So I know that that's reality. But you can come up here and you can type. So I'm typing mouse and click. Now, you might have more than one mouse person in the family here. You can also click on first name and type Mickey. So you can filter and do searches through that so that if I just need Mickey Mouse's office visits for some type of report request, I can easily filter. And notice every time I clicked and filtered the data, it threw this little symbol up here in the top of the screen. This little funnel symbol is filtering. That's what that means. And so if I ever wanted to back it off, I could always just unclick and unclick, and it goes back to the report I originally had. Notice there's a filter that we start out for you to only show you your students who are currently enrolled. Well, maybe you need to look at information on students that you had 2 months ago and needed to pull. All you would need to do is come in here and remove this filter of enrolled, and you could go and search for that in particular student that you needed for that report you were trying to pull. Now, what are some other things that you can do with this report? You can come in here into the columns, of course, and select, but I also have a favorite in this format area. You can run charts. You can have it control break. So let's say you wanted to have a printout or separate this report by student or by, if you're at district office and you're running it for the whole district and you want to separate it by school, I can go into this control break area and choose what kind of column. Maybe you want to run it or do a column, a control break by type of office visit that you had. Who knows what kind of report you might want to run out of this. But I just select which column I want it to display by. So let's say I want to do it by the last name. We'll just pick that. So I'm going to do last name and apply. And so now everybody with last name, Christian, they're listed there. And see how it separates out last name Wright, last name Mouse, last name Davenport. And the great thing about these is when you print them, it will print with this view. So let's talk about printing for a minute. Where do I go to print this, or what are my options for extracting this out? Because it's great, I can see it on the screen, but a lot of times we need it on that piece of paper for some reason to turn over to someone. So down here under the actions, because remember, actions are your best friend, you have a download button. So if I click download, depending on which report you're running, you get different options of what you can do and download. I think there's 4 total. You can do CSV, PDF, HTML. You can even email some of these reports. Just be very cautious because we know we really shouldn't be emailing medical information because it's not secure and all that. So we got to be careful with that. But whatever options are here is what you could have. So if I wanted to download this as a PDF, I could do that. I can open the file. Oh, and my PDF viewer's been going crazy, y'all. Let me see if I get it this way. Where's my download folder? Yeah, they redid my license on my Adobe, but you would see how to open it up, get it printed out, and the same thing with the CSV. Let's see if I can get it to open since and it's coming up on my other screen, but here you can see it is in that type of atmosphere. So those are your options for those two. You would get a PDF or a CSV so that if you needed to do something, you actually could. All right, so let's go back to other views that we can have right here. So if I'm going to, and this is where it did the control break by last name, if I wanted to do other things in format, so control break allows you to kind of separate it by some parameter. Another thing that you can do that I really like to do sometimes is this group by, because how many times do you as a nurse have to count some amount of time something happened? Like how many different office visits you had, how many people have certain types of health concerns, things like that. Group by is a really quick and easy way to do counting of data. So if I hit the group by button, I would need to choose what information. So maybe I want to group it by, student, by last name, or by school. Like you want to know how many office visits every school had. You would run this at district office. You would click school, and under functions, I would say count. And then I hit apply. And I could see at this school, I had 5 office visits for this year. You'd have probably 2,378 office visits, but you'd be able to see what your office visits are. And so you can run all kinds of things on this without y'all having to manually print things out. So I'm hoping that that's going to really relieve a lot of the stuff that y'all have to do. You're going to love some stuff I show you in just a little bit. But anytime you get those and you're ready to go back to the way that you have, notice that it did this little group by feature right here. If I wanted it to go back, I could just undo it and I'm back to my data. Now, another really cool thing that you can do with these reports. So let's say that you're looking at a report that's got, thousands of entries of office visits, and you want it to be separated by grade level and first name and teacher or something like that. And you worked so hard and you got it looking just like you're wanting. And you're like, Stacy, I want it to look just like this the next time I go into the report. I don't want to have to go through all those buttons again. There's actually a way to save the reports, and you can either choose to save it for you or publicly for anybody who has access to the report. So let's just throw a filter on here right quick. Let's say I'm going to filter this for, well, let's see, what do I want to do? I could do all kinds of things. Let's just pretend I'm at district office and I have it filtered for a certain school or something. Oops. Okay, so I've done something to the report. Okay. Once I get the report just like I want it, I'm going to go to Actions, and I'm going to go to Save Report. Okay, I'm going to name it. So this is, I'm going to call it the Opelika High Office Visits. Okay. I can never spell when people are watching. Then I can decide, do I want this to just be for me, or do I want to allow anybody who has access to this report to see this view of the report? If you want somebody else to be able to see it as well, you're going to click that public box. If you're just making it for you because it's something you have to do and see, just name it and hit apply. What that does is it throws a box right here that gives you options for layouts of this report. So now I have the primary report and I have the Opelika High office visits report. So watch what happens. Let's close this report out. So let's say it's been a week and I need to come back in here and I need to look at that data in the exact same way that I just had. Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to open the report and notice it's back to the way it was beginning in that primary report. All you have to do is click on that little list, click on office visits, and it'll reform it back to the way that you have. And we'll practice that on some of the others where I've got like really good data that I can conform to show you those differences. So there is the office visit report. It's a way that you can pull all of that information that you've entered in that office visit in either a CSV or a PDF so that you can produce it for whatever request you might have to do or for your records if you're needing to put it in something. So that is our first report, the office visit report. All right, so the next report is a read receipt report. So this is one of those three that you can only run at district level. So I want to show you what happens if you try to run this at a school level because it's going to show for your schools. You just can't run it yet. And I'll tell you why. It's a security feature inside of PowerSchool. We have emailed and put in a support ticket with PowerSchool requesting access to these tables at a school level so that we can open this up for them to be run at schools, but it's something that they would have to do in a core release update. So I don't have an ETA on when that might happen, but the request has been made. So hopefully eventually we will be able to get to all of these reports at a school level. We just can't do it currently. So if you did try to run this report, you're going to get this little error message right here and it won't do anything. So just keep that in mind. And once I go through all these, I'll flip back to the district office and show you what those three look like at district. All right, the help contact log. Now this one can be run at both levels. So let's go and take a look at it. So just like with the office visit report, the first thing you're going to have to do is choose what school year you want to pull these records for. And I'll tell you, it's kind of nice that you can go back to all your years here in this one spot and pull data for whichever way you need to look at it. So again, I'm going to go back to the 21-22 school year. And let me back out a little bit so you can see how big this report is. Notice it's another one of those where the biggest thing that we got is, hey, Stacy, I need to be able to see those comments. I need to print out something that's got all of my notes in it and everything that I had to enter in on that record. So you'll notice here are my contact logs. Here are the students. I give you the grade level, give you the date of the contact, the time, any needs, and then the comments that you put in here. But just like the other report, this is not all the data that's there. You can go to the actions and you can go to select columns, and do you see here's all the other information that you can pull over. So let me zoom back in. Let's go up just a little bit. And so I can see all of this other. So let me just go ahead. I'm going to grab all of it and put it over there to show you what the largest amount possibly can be. And I'm going to hit apply. And the crazy thing about that is it's going to make these go like really weird because they're long. But you'll see now you can get all of that information. It even tells you who created this record and when they created it so that you can get that kind of information. It's got those who modified this record and when for reporting purposes. And so just like the other reports, you can download them, so a CSV or a PDF, and be able to give those. And just like all of the other ones, and in fact, I'm going to come over here, go to my select columns. I'm going to move it all back over and make this a little more user-friendly. I'm going to grab the names, the school, the gender, the grade level, date, time in and out, comments, guardian email, any of that. I'm going to just make it a little bit shorter. There we go, a little bit better to read here. Now that I've got that information, you can still do the same things we could do over on the office visit reports if I want to group it. So if I want to filter and say, just show me all of my contact logs for all of my 11th graders, you know, whatever it is you might want to do, you can go run these filters. You can filter them from there, or like I said here, you can filter them from here. So I could have done the exact same thing of filtering that grade level by clicking on grade level here and choosing it from the list or typing it in up here. There's so many ways to achieve the same thing in this area right here to get it exactly what you want to look at. If you want to look at, here's another great thing. Maybe from the district office, you want to know which of your nurses out in the schools are making the most contacts with parents out there. You could come up here into filter and say, I want to filter by who created this. And instead of equals, because I'm not going to type in the name, I'm going to say contains, and maybe I've got a nurse with a certain name. It would filter and then show me just the ones that that person had entered. So if I needed to look at it that way, if I needed to, and let's actually come over here, select columns, and put the who created field over there so I can see that yes, there is the nurse that created this record. And I could say that I want to do a count of that. So I could always come over here to format and group by and say, I want to group them by who created or what it was. Who, oh, I put it up here. Who created and count and apply. So again, some of those same procedures you can run on all of these reports. So I can see that that nurse entered for contact logs. Okay. So that is the contact report that allows you to gather out the data that's entered on that health contact log tab inside of health management. So you can pull all of those areas out that you had to enter in information on. Okay, let's go back into the enterprise reports. The next one is the diabetic monitoring. Okay, this is another one of those that you cannot run at the school level. We can only run at district office. So I'll show you again. When you click on it from the school, you're going to get that error message right there. So we'll go over that one in just a little while. As is, unfortunately, the health plan is another one that you can only run at district level. So you'll get that same error message. So we'll catch it in just a little while when we swap to district office. So let's look at the health screening one because this one looks very different from the other ones. So this one can be ran from the school level as well. And just like last time, I'm going to back out just a little bit. You've got to select a school year. So I'm going to go 21-22. And notice you have multiple bars on this one. These bars can collapse and expand depending on what you're wanting to look at. So this was probably the hardest report for us to write because we know how you need the information, but it's hard to tie it together the way that you need it. So I know sometimes you just need to run a report of who's had what screenings. When you're going for that kind of report, you're going to use this summary area up here at the top. So each one of these bars is like a mini spreadsheet, like what we were just looking at on all of those other reports. So here I can see all of my students who've had a screening entered and what the screening type is. Now, there's not going to be a lot of extra columns here because this is going to be very detailed data. Each one of these screenings lies on a different table, which is why we had to separate it all out. And so you're not really going to have anything else that you can pull out over here. So if I needed to see who all has had a scoliosis screening, then I could come over here to the type and I can click on it and filter by going, show me just my scoliosis screening students. And that way you would know, like if you're looking for your, is it fifth grade that you do scoliosis screening? I don't even know what grade it is now, y'all. I'm sorry. But whatever grade it is, like if you needed to run that class list and say who has had their screening and who has not had their screening, you could easily get your list to see who you've entered it in on to know who you still needed to go and work on. So that is what this screening report summary is just for you to see what the date is and who's had which kind of screening. If you actually need to run the reports, like give a printout of all of the vision screening and results or scoliosis screening and results or whichever one of these, each one of these is another box that goes just into that. Every box has the actions. Now, this one doesn't have anything. I do want to believe, let's just go through them right quick. Vision has a couple of other areas that you can place in there. Hearing, don't believe does not. So what you see on that one is everything. Oral, I believe, has everything. Oh, nope. Treat urgency is there that you could pull over if you needed to. And the TB screening has everything right out of the gate. And I believe vital signs does as well. Yes. So any of those already come out of the gate, everything that you entered in. So these contain all of the fields on those individual record entries for those screenings. So if I had somebody who had the scoliosis screening, I can see right here all of the information, what the grade level was, when the date was done. If you had entered in something for an x-ray impression or a screen outcome, you would see that information here. And just like all of the other reports, there's a download button where you can get a CSV or a PDF. Now, this also has an extra little option that you see on some reports. Do you notice down here it has a subscription option? Not all reports have this, but what this is where you can actually subscribe to have this report emailed to you daily, weekly, or monthly. So if there's some reason you just need it to automatically grab this data and email it to you, you can do that. Just remember what I said about being careful about what you put in emails and really if that's appropriate or not. It's going to be depending on your data governance policy in your district, whether you can allow that, but the option is there if you do. So that's a pretty cool little feature. And that is your screening report. So this one is probably the most different of all of them because of how it's structured out of there. You get the same filtering capability. So if you're looking at all of your students across the grade levels and you need to just find the hearing screening for one particular student or a particular grade of students, you can still do all the filtering, all the counting, all of the little fun stuff that I showed you at the beginning can be done on every one of these individual little reports. And you can do it for any school year. So if I had some information for this year, oh, I found a little error and I need to get that one looked at. And if you ever run across an error in one of these reports, do email me because I'll get our developer to go back and look at it. Sometimes districts will have, of course, way more data than what we have in our sandbox. And so we're not ever to like run every testing scenario on it. But usually that's when we end up putting those updates out there to say, hey, we found a bug in this script right here because it didn't account for this situation. And here everybody needs to reinstall and we'll get it fixed. Just like with any other software packages you see, you have to do updates to it. So if you run across something like that, just let me know and we can get that fixed. Not a problem at all. So that is our health screening report. Okay, let's look at the next one, health concerns. Again, this one can be run from both district and school level. And this one's got a good bit of stuff, and we kind of come with it pre-filtered for you as well. So you're going to see, so our health concerns are, again, you know, what's inside of that little red icon when the teachers and you go look on it, and it's everything you entered in. It's going to give you the names, gender. We pulled in just slight demographics, the concern name, whether the concern shows in the alert or not, or whether the comment, because sometimes we forget to check that box when we put in a concern to say, hey, show it in the concern when the teacher checks on there. So I always tell everybody it might be a really good idea to run this report and see who has no, because like this right here, this student who has sickle cell, nobody can see it but you as a nurse. The teachers, when they click that little red icon, is not going to see that this student has sickle cell because it's shown no in the comment alert. And was that intentional or not? If it was a mistake and you know, like, no, they need to see it, then that tells you can go and click that box for them. So the same type of columns that we want to choose inside of here is where we're at. We can do those as well. So if I wanted to get the doctor name, phone number, there's some physician information, again, who created the concern or whatever, I can do it here. So I can add everything over, and let's just, I actually want to leave it like that for just a minute. One of the things that I want to point out to this report and the medication report actually come with some pre-built layers to this report already. So if you notice, I'm almost scared to do any zooming and it go funny. Do you notice how it already has this primary report listed here in the center? So if you, anytime you see that listed there, that means there's optional layers already there for you to see. So if I were to drop this down, do you see I have actually 4 different reports built into this one report? So it's the same set of data, it's just the health concerns and that information pulled in, but it is pulling it in different ways. So the first thing is just the raw, you know, spreadsheet view of the information. But let's take a look at this next one. Maybe you want it to count or do a chart of the totals of each one of your types of concerns. Because isn't that something you'll have to submit at the end of the year, like how many counts of different concerns you have in the school? So if I click on that, it actually gives you a nice bar graph. So maybe you have to present to the superintendent, like, hey, here's what we're dealing with out in the schools, and we've got a lot of diabetic kids, and we've got a lot of this, and you're trying to, show we need funding or something like that. Here gives you a nice bar graph to see it. And if you click down, there's also a count graph here, count of conditions. So here's where you get your numbers. So it'll produce it for you nice and pretty. I have 103 students who have been tagged with a headache. I've got 309 students who've been tagged with asthma. I've got 329 students with vision problems. So you could see that it would count for you automatically all of your different health conditions that you actually have in your schools. All right, and then the last one is a pivot table that shows you the concerns per grade level. So here it lists all of your different health conditions on the left, and by grade level, how many students have those conditions. So just some different ways to look at the information. And I'll tell you this, if you see one of these reports and you're like, Stacy, this is great. I really would love it if it would also go ahead and have a page that counted this. Just let me know, because like I said, we can update and alter these reports to give you different views. If you're like, there's a great bar graph or a pivot table like this that you would like to see the information on. We're very, very much easy to do that for you. So I'm going to go back to the primary report. Because if one of the things that I want to do, like maybe you need to send a letter to everybody who has a peanut allergy to let them know something. Let's just take that for an example. So if I needed to do some type of allergy, I could come over here to concern name, and I could look. Oh, I've got one list called allergies food. So if I click on that, okay, here are all of my students who have food allergies. So maybe there's some kind of communication, some informative something you want to mail out, and you're like, I want all of these kids to be my selection in PowerSchool, or I want to do something with them. There's actually a little button over here that says set them as the current selection, so that once you do that, and I can say set selection, I get this little green check box. Watch what happens. When I go back to the main screen, those are my kids in the list. So it's a way for you to choose those kids if you needed to go work with their record, update their record, or get, what homerooms they're in, something like that. It's a way that you can manipulate and get that information outside of there. And notice on this, I have multiple types of download options. So I can again do the CSV. Nobody's ever going to use HTML. I can go ahead and tell you that. PDF, and this is one of those things that I can, again, send in an email. I can't subscribe it, but if I needed to send it in an email, I could. And if you needed to save this as a report, like maybe you wanted to keep an eye on who your food allergy or your diabetic students are, I can always go up here to Save Report and call this Food Allergy Report and hit Apply. And so now I have an extra report in my list that I can always come back to. So I can flip back and forth between this report and that report. So saving those reports for you is really, really ideal. Okay, so that's the health concern report. So let's take a look at the next report, which is the medication report. So I'm going to go back to the enterprise reports and look at the medication report, because I know people have asked for this one quite a bit. This one shows you all of your students who have medications and doses and dates and inventory, because somebody said, hey, we need a quick way to pull what inventory we have left on all of our medications in the school. So just like the other reports, we have the select columns, and you have all of this other information. There's a good bit of it over here that you can pull into this report if you want to. So I'm going to pull it all over there. So it's going to make for a lot of columns, y'all. But notice, now I get the full view of everything you can enter on those medications. So you got the student's name, you've got the medication name, the dosages, the routes, the reasons, the doctor. I don't know why I've got an email address in there for the doctor, but I do. All of this information. Why do they take this medicine? Like all of this that y'all have to enter inside of there, you're going to see right in here. Okay. So if you ever need to come in and print, and the same thing with these, you've got the download options that let you do a CSV, a PDF, an email. If you need it just for that one student, then you could come in here and you could filter by that last name of Mouse. So if I needed just for Mickey Mouse all of their medication, then I've got it right here and I could print it out and I could submit it for whatever I needed to submit it for. Okay. Just like your other report, do you notice you have it says primary up here? So what does that mean? You have more layers of reports. Now this one has actually a pivot table built in that shows you the medications per grade level. So actually let me get out of Mickey. And do you notice that you did not have, this is the first report, you didn't have to choose a year up here? It's got a filter that says, show me the medications that are current that end within the next 5 years. So if y'all have said, you know, they're going to be taking this medication, I know most of the time y'all do it for a year out. We just went ahead and pushed it to 5 years. So if you see anything active right now and in the future, that's who's listed right here. So if I didn't want that and I wanted to see everything in the past years as well, you could just take that off and get that. But if I wanted to go to this pivot table to show you what it is, here I can see, here are my medications, and here are how many students take each one of those medications in the school. So if you wanted to know how many take Abilify, I don't even know what that is, but how many in your school take that, then you would be able to get those counts inside of here. If you wanted to build your own pivot tables with this information, if you're familiar with pivot tables, you absolutely have the ability to do that. This format allows you to do all kind of aggregate data inside of that. The thing is, and what's great about these reports is you can't break them. You cannot break them at all. So feel free to go in here and try to filter it, format it, control break it, sort it, do whatever you want to. If you want to try to get a chart of it somehow and you label, you know, whatever it is you want, go ahead and do it. And if you're like, oh, I've messed it up, now I can't get it back, you can always get it back by just closing it and open it back up, because it will start it all over again. So that's what I want you to make sure is feel comfortable with it. Go play around with it because you cannot break it, I promise you. All right, so those are all of the reports that you can run at the school level. So now let's flip to the district office level so that you can see those 3 reports that are in there. One second. Close out of this. Let's swap back to district office. And now let's go into system report. So now remember, as I run these 3, and every one of them that I just showed you, you can run from the district office as well, but I need to pick up the 3 that we couldn't see from the school level. So let's first start with the read receipt report, because this one was a highly requested report. They're like, Stacy, I need to see who has done the read receipts and who has not for the students. So I'm going to scroll down here to read receipts. And maybe you're the lead nurse and you need to do it for certain schools. So if I come into this report, let's look at our columns first. What all do we have? So we've got student, SSID, we've got the school, the health plan name, and we've got gender and grade level. So let's just throw those 2 over there and apply them just so that you can kind of see all the information. Now, when it comes to the read receipt, maybe it's because this can only be run at district office. You need to separate the report out so that you can give it to each one of your nurses at the school so they know what teachers they need to track down. So if you needed to filter it, so I'm going to go here and say, I just want to run this for this school. I only want to look at the high school. Well, here it is now just filtered for the high school. So remember, you could filter these and set these as saved reports for each one of the schools in your district. That way you can just refer back to it if you need to at any moment in time. So I'm looking at the high school's data here. And here I can see these are all of the students who have some type of health plan. And I can see right here who the teachers are. And I can see when the plan started, when the plan ended, the status, and everything. So these would be all of them who have actually acknowledged this receipt. And it tells you the date that it's read. So what do you think it means if it has the little blank right here? They haven't read it. So these would be the teachers that I would need to go, Miss Collette, can you tell me why you have not read Bradley's health plan? So if you wanted to separate it out and look at those who have read or who have not read, you could have it look for the blanks. So I could filter, and I want to filter by the date read, and I want to say is null. That means is blank. Now I'm looking at everybody who has not read this, and I can save this. If I wanted to say, all right, save this report as not read OHS health plans and apply. Now I know that these are the teachers that I need to go and take a look at. So for this student, and if I want to even, cut it a little bit. So I'm going to go to format, and I'm going to control break, and I want it to sort by the student. So now do you see? Here is this student name. Here's their teachers that have not read. Here is this student name. Here are their teachers who have not read it. So this gives you a way that you can go in and either look at the data in a view of this is how it has been read, or this is how it has not been read. So completely different views that you can do inside of there. And just like in the other ones, you can download it. Now here's another great feature to this one. If you have this report saved this way right here, there's that subscription. So you can have it email you this report each week to go, okay, who's not read the report this week? Who has not read it? So that you can know who you need to track down. So if I save that and decide, nope, I need to go back to the original view of everybody and whether they've read it or not, now I can go through and do that. So let's get rid of that date null. And now I'm back to those who have read. So if you wanted to filter it for those who have read, again, same thing here, filter, and give me for date read is not null, meaning there is a date that has been populated there. Hit apply. And now I've got all of them that have been read. So you can do the same thing. So remember, this is recorded, so you can go back and see how I did that filtering and go through there. Okay. So that is your read receipt report so that you can find out who is keeping an eye on the kids and who's not. All right, let's go to the next one that was a district only report, which is your diabetic monitoring report. So if I click into the diabetic monitoring report, this one again asks me to look at a school year. So I'm going to go to 21-22, and I've got my information here. So one thing that I would need to do is any filtering possibly I would need to. I have the same type of information here where I have all of these different items. So if I were to throw everything over inside of here and hit apply, I can see what's happened in all of the information. So all of those fields that you have to fill out in that monitoring tab inside of there, here's all of that information that you could pull out at any point in time. You can filter it for an individual student. So like if you had to, like if a parent requested it and say, hey, can you give me Mickey Mouse's diabetic monitoring so that I can see that? Then you can see all of that information here. I can filter it for last name of Mouse, just like I did on the others, and pull just that student's information up and print out if I need to. So here's Mickey Mouse's, all of his monitoring results. I can print them out. I can, let's see, was email? Nope, just PDF or CSV. So for whatever you needed to do, if you needed to go in and save it as a separate report, you more than could do that. You can go in, you can filter it for different type of monitoring events. Everything you could do on those other reports, you can do on this one as well. So again, it picks up all of the items that are inside of those monitoring results. All right, and then let's go to our last one, which was the health plan report. Now, a lot of people get kind of a misinterpretation of what this is. This is not actual printouts of the health plans, because you can't do that in mass because they're all separate reports. What this is a printout of all of the plans that are attached to student records. So these are all of my students and the type of plan that has been entered in on them. Notice when I go to select columns, I can get a little bit more information in there. So I'm going to throw all these columns over so you can kind of see what it is. But it will give you the name. It will give you the actual health plan. It will tell you when it was added. It will tell you who created it for them, when the start date of the plan is, and that kind of information. So if you needed to run reports on like how many students have XYZ type of health plan, you could definitely do that. So in fact, I could do that count right now. If I go to format and I do group by, let's say I want to group by the health plan name and I want to have it count, and I hit apply. So this is looking at the entire district. I can see how many students have each one of these types of plans entered. So if that's something that you have to keep your eye on for reporting purposes, you create this and you hit save report, and it will be, let's say, health plan counts. And I'm going to apply. And so now let's close out. If I ever come back to run this report and I'm like, oh, I need to look at my counts again, I just come in here, choose it like I have, and it redoes the numbers for you. So once you get comfortable running these reports, there's going to be all kind of options that you can do within them to hopefully be able to easily get this information out inside of here. And guys, that is kind of top to bottom how to run all of these reports. So I hope y'all have found this helpful. Now, one thing I want to do right quick, let me stop the recording, because what I want to do now